Let me ask you a question. Would you rather win an NBA championship or a EuroLeague championship? See, this guy right here, he'd rather win the EuroLeague. He actually won both titles, and so did 10 other players, and I'm willing to bet you can't guess who they are. Giannis Antetokoumnpo? No. Nikola Jokic? No. Dirk Nowitzki? No. Pau and Marc Gasol? Both no. Tony Parker? Still no. Darko Milicic, Ricky Rubio, Shane Larkin? Hell no. I know exactly what you're thinking. If the greatest European NBA players never won the EuroLeague, then who the heck won both? I missed out one big NBA international star. Can you guess who? Manu Ginobili. Yes, he is on the very short list of players to do the NBA EuroLeague double.
Let's rewind the whole thing.
Manu Ginobili was a late bloomer. He didn't play in the NBA until he was 25, which is crazy considering he played 18 seasons with the Spurs. Ginobili started his career playing pro in his home country of Argentina. He then moved to Europe and worked his way up from the Italian second division and sneaked into the second round of the NBA draft. By the way, nobody knew this guy, not even Tim Duncan.
Who did we just pick? I was like, oh yeah, he's gonna be great, he's this, he's, oh, okay, Pop, whatever. Yeah, okay, yeah, whatever.
Despite being drafted in 1999, Manu Ginobili stayed in Europe for another 3 years, which gave him just enough time to conquer the continent. Manu was stashed at Bologna in Italy, and in those 2 years, he won everything individually and collectively. Domestically, he won an Italian League championship, 2 Italian Cups, was Italian League MVP twice, he led the Italian League in steals, and even won the Italian League dunk contest. How on earth is Manu Ginobili winning a dunk contest anywhere in the world? The real question is, what did Manu do in EuroLeague? Well, in 2001 he averaged 15.2 points, 4.1 rebounds, 2 assists, he made the all EuroLeague first team, was finals MVP, finals top scorer, and won the EuroLeague championship. Not bad. That summer 2001, Manu won his first gold medal with the Argentinian national team at FIBA AmeriCup, which is basically Eurobasket but for Central, North and South American countries. Manu was MVP of the competition and beat Steve Nash in Canada en route to gold. But this was just the beginning. The 2002 FIBA World Cup was when Manu Ginobili properly introduced himself to the basketball world. Remember, in 2002, Manu was still playing in Italy. So when he was one of the standout players in a tournament that included NBA stars like Dirk Nowitzki, Paul Pierce, Reggie Miller, Yao Ming and Peja Stojakovic, the NBA world knew it was time to take Manu Ginobili serious. Ginobili led Argentina to the final. He scored 15 points in a win over USA to get there, and in the final against Yugoslavia, this happened. Argentina were seconds away from being world champions. They choked and lost in overtime. But don't worry, Manu got another chance. After his performances at the 2002 FIBA World Cup, Manu was ready for the NBA, and he joined the San Antonio Spurs. In his rookie season, he wasted no time and won his first NBA championship. I know he was a role player, but he still played in every playoff game for an average of 27 minutes, so no, he didn't steal a ring. The next season, Manu improved individually, but the Spurs were sent home in the second round, partially because Derek Fisher did this to Manu Ginobili.
They get it to Fisher. He scores! Derek Fisher!
Being on the receiving end of that crazy shot must have played on Manu's mind all summer. So much so that he copied Derek Fisher and replicated his shot in Argentina's Olympic opener.
Le queda poco tiempo a Argentina. ¡Ah! ¡Canasta!
What Manu did at the Olympics in 2004 is one of the greatest feats in basketball history. He averaged 19.3 points, 3.3 assists, 4 rebounds. He shot 58% from the field and 41% from free. But there's so much more. In the quarterfinals, they defeated Greece in Greece, beating 2 of the EuroLeague GOATs. They played USA in the semi-finals, And by the way, this USA team was way stronger than the team they beat in 2002. This one had LeBron James, Tim Duncan, D Wade, Allen Iverson, Carmelo Anthony and many more all-stars. But all Manu Ginobili needed was a little help from Luis Scola, and he handled the rest, with 29 points on 9 of 13 shooting, leading Argentina to the W and a chance at gold. This was the first and only time since the Dream Team was assembled in 1992 that USA didn't win gold at the Olympic Games. Manu Ginobili took on a team of Hall of Famers without a single other NBA All-Star on his team and won not once but twice. And of course, Manu and co made light work of Italy in the final and won Olympic gold for the first time in their history. This was the greatest accomplishment of his basketball career, but Manu just kept on cooking. In the 2005 NBA season, he started every game. He made his first All-Star appearance, was All-NBA and averaged 20.8 points and 5.8 rebounds in the playoffs, and won his second championship with the Spurs. In the 2005-06 NBA Finals, Manu scored 20 plus points on 3 occasions, including 23 points in Game 7. The Spurs were champions again in 2007. That season, Manu averaged a career-high 19.5 points per game, and with the championship on the line against LeBron James and the Cavs, it was Manu who sealed the deal. Oh, he also had 27 points. He's him. Manu continued to be a great NBA player. The following season, he was 6th Man of the Year. In 2011, he was an All-Star again after averaging 17.4 points and a career-high 4.9 assists. He was still a key contributor for the Spurs in both the 2013 and 2014 seasons, particularly in the finals against Miami. In Game 3 of the 2013 NBA Finals, he had 24 points and 10 assists. He also had 19 in the closeout game against the Heat to win his 4th and final NBA championship. Manu continued to play in the NBA until 2018. He was well past his prime, but still remained one of the best closers in the NBA. The thing I respect most about Manu is that he sacrificed individual success for the better of the team. He played 1,057 NBA games. He started just 349 of those. That's 31%. Manu Ginobili made the playoffs every year of his career. His jersey is retired in San Antonio. He won championships in 3 different continents. He is one of 2 players in basketball history that has won Olympic gold, an NBA championship and the EuroLeague title. And that's why Manu Ginobili is one of the most underrated players in basketball history. Next up on the list we have Toni Kukoc. While he wasn't the European Jordan that Jerry Krause tipped him to be in the NBA, when you talk about greatest NBA players to never make an All-Star game, Toni Kukoc is one of them. And his time in Chicago is just a small part of his incredible basketball career. Toni Kukoc was the greatest European prospect of his time. He was a man of many nicknames: the Croatian Sensation, the Pink Panther, and Euro Magic. Toni Kukoc started his professional career at his local club in his hometown in Croatia, and he gave his hometown fans a dynasty they'll never forget. Not only did Kukoc dominate domestically, winning 4 Yugoslavian League titles, 2 Yugoslavian Cups, but he also conquered the continent. This small club from Spalato, Croatia, won the EuroLeague championship 3 years in a row. This wasn't the only three-peat of his career though, but you already knew that. What you probably didn't know was how successful Toni Kukoc was at international level. He won the FIBA World Cup in 1990 and famously scored 19 points in a win over Team USA. Toni Kukoc also won EuroBasket in 1989 and 1991, so technically he three-peated in FIBA as well, winning gold at 3 consecutive international tournaments. The only thing Kukoc didn't win internationally was Olympic gold. He had to settle for silver, not once, but twice. In 1988, Yugoslavia lost to the Soviet Union. They really should have won that. And in 1992, playing with Croatia, Kukoc lost to the Dream Team. Yes, Jordan and Pippen did kick his ass, but let's be fair here. Croatia has a population of just 3.8 million people. For context, there is twice as many people living in New York City alone as there is in the entire country of Croatia. Kukoc was up against the greatest basketball team ever assembled, so I'd argue that silver medal is something to be proud of. After spending a year professionally in Italy and winning some more trophies, Toni Kukoc finally joined the Chicago Bulls in 1993, and it didn't take him long to earn his respect in Chicago. In his rookie season, he famously ruined this iconic Reggie Miller moment by doing this.
Tony got it, put it up, look out, he got it!
Kukoc wasn't quite Jordan at the NBA level, but one thing they had in common was the clutch gene. In Game 3 of a playoff series against the Knicks, much to the frustration of Scottie Pippen, Phil Jackson turned to Toni Kukoc. He delivered by calling game.
Lob comes into Tony, look out, it's on line! Yeah! Bulls win!
This was just his second NBA season. Kukoc averaged 15.7 points, 5.4 rebounds and 4.6 assists. The Chicago Bulls won 55 games. They lost in the second round to the Knicks in 7 games. Remember, Toni Kukoc did this as a number 2 option in year 2 with no Michael Jordan. It makes you wonder how differently we'd perceive Toni Kukoc had he been a number 1 option during this time period. Because when you think of the second three-peat, you think of the big 3, Jordan, Pippen, Rodman. But doesn't Toni Kukoc deserve to be in that conversation? When Jordan returned, it was Kukoc who sacrificed the most individually. He accepted a bench role. And what did he do? Won 6th man of the year, was 3rd in scoring on the Bulls, averaging 13 points per game off the bench. Were his sacrifices worth it? You tell me. The Bulls went 72-10 and Kukoc won his first NBA championship, and he scored in double digits in every game of the 1996 NBA Finals. By winning the championship, Toni Kukoc became one of just 4 players in NBA history to win 6th man of the year and a championship in the same season. Kukoc was the heart and soul of Chicago's bench during the second three-peat, and I know you've seen the play, but for those who weren't born to see it, let's relive Kukoc's championship winning dunk. In 1998, the Bulls did it all over again for a 3rd time. Kukoc was as good as ever. When needed most in Game 7 of the conference finals against Indiana, he delivered 21 points on 7 of 11 shooting off the bench. In Game 5 of the finals against Utah, he had 35 and 6, and in the Game 6 win against the Jazz, he chipped in for 15 points. We've all seen The Last Dance. We all know after the 6th championship, the Bulls fell apart. But Kukoc was one of the few that stuck around. The Bulls finished 15th in the conference. But what do you expect? They lost him, and him. Kukoc played NBA basketball until 2006. In 7 seasons with the Bulls, Toni Kukoc averaged 14.1 points, 4.8 rebounds, 4.2 assists, and 1.1 steals. He did this mostly coming off the bench, starting in just 217 of his 436 games in Chicago. When playing with the Hawks in 2001, Kukoc averaged 19.7 points, 6.2 assists, and 5.7 rebounds per game. He also shot 49% from the field and 48% from free. And you're telling me he isn't underrated? Toni Kukoc was well ahead of his time. I think he'd be one of the best players in today's NBA, and I don't think he ever got to show how good he really was individually at the NBA level. But the resume speaks for itself. Toni Kukoc was successful at every level of basketball. He three-peated in the NBA, EuroLeague and FIBA. It didn't matter if he was the star or a role player. Toni Kukoc was a winner who won time and time again, and that's why he's in the Hall of Fame. The next guy is the best NBA player to ever win the EuroLeague. No, not Luka Doncic, not Dominique Wilkins, Bob Mcadoo, the only NBA MVP who ever won a EuroLeague championship. Bob McAdoo's story is pretty unique. He wasn't able to play D1 basketball because he failed his tests at school, forcing him to play JUCO college. But by his junior year, the North Carolina native finally joined UNC. Mcadoo led the Tar Heels to the Final Four. He averaged 19.5 points per game, was MVP of the ACC, and in the 1972 draft, he was selected number 2 overall by the Buffalo Braves. Mcadoo was a star from day one. He was Rookie of the Year, he made his first All-Star game and led the league in scoring as a sophomore. In year 3, he averaged 34.5 points per game and 14.1 rebounds. Big shock, he won MVP that year. Bob Mcadoo's prime was short but special. He made 5 All-Star games, won 3 scoring titles. Sadly, he suffered a lot of injuries that cut short his best years. But let's be fair, Mcadoo was still a top player. He had spells with the Knicks, Celtics, Pistons and Nets. He played alongside some of the top players from the 70s, Walt Frazier, Earl Monroe, Nate Archibald. But it wasn't until he joined the Lakers in the 80s he started winning. But with Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and James Worthy, Bob Mcadoo was no longer the star. But he was willing to sacrifice playing time and stats to try and win. And win he did. In the 1981-82 season, the Lakers won the championship, the first of Mcadoo's career. This was a huge deal, because back then, when they talked about the greatest players to never win a ring, Mcadoo was one of them. But this wasn't an easy ride to a ring. Bob Mcadoo actually contributed. You can see his regular season numbers were some mid, but when it mattered come playoff time, Bob Mcadoo upped his game, and he did this while coming off the bench. The next 2 years, LA lost in the finals back-to-back years, to Philly in 1983 and Boston in 1984. But in 1985, the Lakers got their lick back, defeating the Celtics in 6 games, which was Bob Mcadoo's second championship. After the finals, Mcadoo was let go by the Lakers. So what did he do? He joined a super team with Julius Erving, Moses Malone and Charles Barkley. That team had 4 MVP players and the Sixers still didn't make the conference finals. Doesn't that remind you of Joel Embiid, who has played with all of these guys and hasn't made the conference finals either? Shout out Kawhi. Philly fans, don't unsubscribe. This may have been Bob Mcadoo's last season in the NBA, but it wasn't his last in basketball. In 1986, Bob Mcadoo teamed up with Mike D'Antoni, yes, that D'Antoni, and joined Italian club Olimpia Milano, which at the time was the biggest signing in EuroLeague history. Most NBA players go over to Europe and fail, but not Bob Mcadoo. He won 2 Italian League championships, an Italian Cup and back-to-back EuroLeague championships in 1987 and 1988. For the first championship he averaged 26 points, for the second he averaged 29 points. He was the EuroLeague's Final Four MVP and Finals leading scorer in 1988. By the way, Bob Mcadoo also won the FIBA Intercontinental Cup in 1987, a tournament that included European, South American and an NCAA Division I All-Star team. Olimpia Milano won the tournament and Mcadoo scored 25 points in the championship game. By 1990, Bob Mcadoo was old and even past his European prime, but he continued to play in Italy for 2 different clubs before retiring from the sport in 1992. But he wasn't done with the sport entirely. Bob Mcadoo went into coaching. He reunited with his former coach Pat Riley and was an assistant coach for the Miami Heat for 25 years. Over there, he won another 3 championships and got to coach the likes of Shaquille O'Neal, Gary Payton, Alonzo Mourning, D Wade, LeBron James, Chris Bosh, Ray Allen, and many others. How about a fun fact? Who remembers James Michael Mcadoo?
Who the fuck is that guy?
Who also played at North Carolina, won 2 NBA championships with the Golden State Warriors playing alongside Curry, Clay and Durant, also played in Europe, but actually did something Mcadoo didn't. He won a G League championship. Bob Mcadoo is a Hall of Famer. He's on the top 75 list. He won the NBA and EuroLeague championships, but he never did what James Michael Mcadoo did. Next up on the list is NBA champion and all-star Chris Middleton's cousin. His name's Josh Powell, and he's one of the biggest journeymen I've ever seen in my life. This guy played for 25 teams in 14 years as a pro, And that's not including high school or college. This guy has played everywhere on planet Earth. I'm gonna guess you don't care what he averaged in South Korea. You don't care whether or not he won the Venezuelan League Championship. So let's just look at his averages in the leagues that mattered. The NBA, NCAA, G League, EuroLeague, NBL, CBA. As you can see, besides China, the numbers say Josh Powell was a role player at every level ever. But for an undrafted guy, he's had quite a career. In the NBA, Powell played with the Mavericks, the Pacers, the Warriors, Clippers, Lakers, Hawks and Rockets. He played in 356 NBA games. He only started 28 of them. His best years individually were in LA. Statistically, was with the Clippers. There, he averaged a career high 5.5 points and 5.3 rebounds. But the Lakers is where he was most successful. In 2008, Powell joined forces with Kobe Bryant and Pau Gasol under Phil Jackson. The Lakers won back-to-back NBA championships, which means Powell has got 2 rings. When you look at his playoff numbers, you can see he didn't have a big role, but he still featured in 27 playoff games during those championship years. He even played in Game 7 of the NBA Finals against the Boston Celtics and put up these stats in 34 seconds of playing time. But Game 7 of the NBA Finals isn't even the biggest game that Josh Powell has played in, because he's played in Greece's derby and said himself that Olympiacos versus Panathinaikos is the biggest rivalry and craziest atmosphere he's experienced as a player. Josh Powell left the NBA to join Greek giants Olympiacos in 2012. Whether it's the NBA or EuroLeague, Powell has always played alongside the best. But despite coming from the NBA, Powell was still a bench player for Olympiacos. He averaged 5.1 points and 2.7 rebounds in just under 13 minutes per game. Olympiacos went to the Final Four, and in the championship game against Real Madrid, he played 6 minutes, scored 2 points and had 1 rebound. But that doesn't matter, because Vasilis Spanoulis dropped 22 points and Olympiacos won the EuroLeague championship. And it's this title in EuroLeague that makes him more special than your average NBA champion. Let me tell you something, not many bench players have had a career like Josh Powell, and he got hella stories to tell the grandkids about. Listen, we just talked about somebody who played with Kobe, so it's only right we transition to a guy who played with Tim Duncan and Kevin Garnett in the NBA, as well as some of the greatest EuroLeague players of all time. I'll let Stephen A. Smith introduce him.
The Spurs have a secret weapon. You know who it is? Say his name.
Listen, I don't have to bring up Rasho Nesterovic.
Secret weapon or money stealer? Rasho Nesterovic had quite a career in basketball. Before being drafted 17th in 1999, Nesterovic had already played pro in Europe for 7 years. He played for some huge European clubs: Partizan, Bologna and later Olympiacos. In 1997, Nesterovic burst onto the scene in Europe, playing for his hometown team in Slovenia. He averaged 17 points and 14 rebounds per game domestically and won his first Slovenian League championship. That summer, he was MVP of the 1996 FIBA Under-20s European Championships. And in 1997, Nesterovic led his boyhood club to their most successful season ever. They won the Slovenian League, they won the Slovenian Cup, they even made the EuroLeague Final Four. Sadly, they lost to Olympiacos in the semi-final. But after averaging 8 points and 4.3 rebounds per game in EuroLeague, at 21 years old, Nesterovic had proved himself to be one of Europe's best young players, and he signed for Bologna in 1997, the same team his future teammate Manu Ginobili won his first EuroLeague title with in 2001. At Bologna, Rasho played alongside some FIBA greats: Zoran Savic, Danilovic, Mcadoo. This team won the Italian LBA Championship, they won the Italian Cup and won the EuroLeague Championship as well. Nesterovic was the starting centre who averaged 6.5 points and 6 rebounds per game in EuroLeague, and in the championship game against AK Athens, he had 9 rebounds and 6 points. Enough about Europe though, let's talk about the NBA. Rasho joined the Timberwolves in 1988. He played 5 seasons in Minnesota and became a starter in his final 2 seasons. You can see between 2001 and 2003 that Nesterovic had become an effective starter. In free agency, despite being offered an extra $12 million by the Timberwolves, Nesterovic left money on the table and took less money, hoping to win a championship in San Antonio.
I played with a guy named Rasho
Nesterovic in Minnesota.
Yeah, he was a quiet guy, very chill. He didn't respond to you in his face. He responded to the pat on the back, to the, hey, keep going right. You know, he responded to that, and he went to San Antonio for just that reason. Hey, I can't deal with KG when he liked this. That with me. Would never be another teammate that say I did that.
His sacrifice and good faith paid off, because in 2005, he won his first and only NBA championship. Sure, his stats got worse, but Nesterovic was still the Spurs starting centre and was well respected by pretty much everyone but Stephen A. Smith.
Rasho Nesterovic.
Nesterovic continued to play NBA basketball until 2010, playing with the Raptors, Pacers and Raptors again. For his NBA career, Nesterovic averaged 11 points, 8.3 rebounds and 1.9 blocks per game. Solid numbers over an 11-year NBA career. In 2010 he returned to Europe and joined Olympiacos, hoping to win another EuroLeague championship. He was very unlucky not to, because Nesterovic retired from basketball in 2011 and Olympiacos won EuroLeague titles back-to-back years in 2012 and 2013, right after he left. Let me tell you something you didn't know, and that's that Rasho Nesterovic is the godfather of another Slovenian basketball player that plays in the NBA. His name is Luka Doncic, and if you didn't know that fact, you need to subscribe to the channel, cause you'll learn something about basketball. The next player on this list is a Hall of Famer, presidential candidate and best-selling author. We gotta rewind the clock all the way back to Bill Bradley, an NBA player turned politician, who weirdly had one of the most complete resumes in basketball history. In high school, Bill Bradley was not only an all-state player, but all-state in the classroom too. He was offered 75 college scholarships. He chose Princeton College. There, he would set records. Over 3 years, he averaged 30.2 points and 12.1 rebounds. In 1964, he led Princeton to the Final Four. He scored 58 points in a game and was MVP of the Final Four, despite losing to Michigan. But that's not even half of it. Bill Bradley was the youngest player chosen to represent USA at the 1964 Olympics. He went to Tokyo and left with a gold medal. Despite being drafted by the New York Knicks in 1965, basketball wasn't Bradley's priority. School was. So instead of joining the NBA, he travelled to Europe to study politics. But he still played basketball. Not at no university level, by the way. He joined Italian club Olimpia Milano, one of the biggest clubs in Italy, and won the EuroLeague championship. Again, that's not all. Bill Bradley played for the New York Knicks in the NBA for 10 years. In 1970, he won an NBA championship and became the first player in history to win an NBA title, EuroLeague title, and Olympic gold medal. The only other player to do this is Manu Ginobili. In 1972, he was an all-star. He averaged 16.1 points, 4.5 assists and 3.7 rebounds. In 1973, the Knicks won the championship again. Bill Bradley is a man of miracles. He is such a winner that even the Knicks won with him around. No, Bill Bradley was never an NBA MVP, but he did make it to the Basketball Hall of Fame because of what he accomplished in the sport. And by the way, basketball is only half of Bradley's story. You won't believe this. Bill Bradley served as a Democratic US Senator for 20 years. He even ran for the Democratic Party's nomination for president in the 2000 election, which he lost to Bill Clinton's Vice President, Al Gore. Bill Bradley has had a Hall of Fame career in sports and politics. Please help me do something with my life and like the video or something. Can you guess the next player? He won an NBA championship with the Milwaukee Bucks in 2021. He also won the EuroLeague. No, it's not Giannis Antetokoumnpo, it's not even Thanasis Antetokoumnpo, it's actually him, Elijah Bryant. Another one of those college guards who put up great stats, but was never taken seriously as an NBA prospect. At BYU, Bryant averaged 18.2 points, 6.3 rebounds and 1.3 steals. Still, he went undrafted in 2018, snuck his way onto the 76ers Summer League roster, and got himself a pro contract in Israel. His first year over there, he was good. So the next year, he joined the best team. Bryant spent 2 years at Maccabi Tel Aviv, averaged these numbers, won the Israeli League Championship, got a taste of EuroLeague, and right before the NBA playoffs, he signed with the Milwaukee Bucks. He played one regular season game, scoring 16 points against the Chicago Bulls. In the playoffs, he played 11 times, under 5 minutes a game, averaged 1.3 points, and the Bucks won the finals. He got a ring, and then he got cut by the team. It's crazy how in that finals series, on one side, you had CP3 on his 20th team in 200 NBA seasons. He doesn't have a ring. And then there's Elijah Bryant, 1 month in the NBA, 56 total NBA minutes, and he's a champion. But Elijah Bryant's career just gets even better. He left the NBA to go play in Turkey, signing with Anadolu Efes, the EuroLeague champions, with superstars like Vasilij Micic and Shane Larkin. Elijah Bryant teamed up with those guys in EuroLeague. He was a bench player, played around 17 minutes a night, averaged 5.1 points per game. But once again, he was warming the right bench, because Anadolu Efes won the EuroLeague championship again, suddenly making Elijah Bryant one of the few players in basketball history to win both titles. He also won both championships back to back, and when asked about which title meant more to him, he said this.
Back to back, baby. NBA, EuroLeague, what's next?
Elijah Bryant actually played 28 minutes in the championship game against Real Madrid. He scored 0 points. Let me tell you a funny coincidence. Elijah Bryant wasn't the only player on Anadolu Efes that has won both championships. Now, Rodrigue Beaubois started out in his home country of France, and after winning the French League's Most Improved Player, he was drafted 25th overall by the OKC Thunder in 2009 and was traded to the Dallas Mavericks on draft night. Beaubois wasn't like Bryant, not Elijah, not Kobe. He played 4 seasons with the Mavericks, 188 games and averaged 7.1 points, 1.9 rebounds and 2.1 assists per game. He was a promising role player, defensive specialist who had terrible injury luck. But it wasn't all bad, because in 2011, he became an NBA champion when the Mavericks upset LeBron Wade and the Heat in the 2011 finals. A few years later in 2013, after the Mavs missed the playoffs for the first time in 13 years, Rodrigue Beaubois was too injury prone to stay in the NBA, so he returned to Europe for the next chapter of his career. He played in Belgium, he played in France and Spain, and in 2018, he joined Anadolu Efes. Beaubois was a key player during their historic run. In their championship winning seasons, he put up these stats in EuroLeague. In EuroLeague, he won 2 titles and made the Final Four 3 times. He won 3 Turkish Super League championships, a Turkish Cup, 3 Turkish Presidential Cups, and was even MVP of the Turkish League Finals in 2021. Everyone credits Shane Larkin, Vasilij Micic and Chris Singleton. But everyone forgets about Beaubois, who was stuck coming off the bench behind the best backcourt in EuroLeague. But he always did what was required of him on both ends and stepped up for Anadolu Efes whenever he was needed. In 2021, he was a part of the 50-40-90 club and has consistently been a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Sounds like the type of guy you want on your team if you're trying to win. We spoke earlier about Toni Kukoc, but what about his international teammate who wasn't quite as good individually but still did a whole lot of winning all over the globe? Zan Tabak was the centre for Jugoplastika from 1985 to 1992. Yes, he also three-peated EuroLeague, won 4 Yugoslavian League titles, 2 Yugoslavian Cups, and also has a silver medal from the 1992 Olympics. Pretty much everything Kukoc won, Tabak did too. Duh, they played for the same team. In 1991 he was drafted with the 51st pick by the Houston Rockets. It wasn't until 1994, after a brief stint at Olimpia Milano, that he joined the NBA. And had he left it any later, he wouldn't have made this list, because Michael Jordan had retired for the first time, which meant another NBA team had a chance of winning a chip in the 90s. The Rockets got one already, with Hakeem Olajuwon, Clyde Drexler and Robert Horry, and they went back to back, sweeping Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway in the NBA Finals. Tabak averaged 2 points and 1.5 rebounds per game. He didn't have much of a role, but who cares, he won a ring in his rookie season. In the 1995 expansion draft, Tabak was chosen by the Toronto Raptors. They were a new team, which means he got to play. Tabak's first season in Toronto was the best of his NBA career individually. He averaged 7.7 points and 4.8 rebounds. And looking at the stats, in comparison to the other teams he played for, he was at his best in the NBA with the Raptors. In 1998, Tabak was a part of a 7-player trade that sent him to Boston. Tabak played just 18 games with the Celtics, said nah, I'm good, and returned to Europe, signing with Turkish club Fenerbahce. That also didn't last long, as he returned to the NBA for a last dance in Indiana, playing alongside Reggie Miller and Chris Mullin, two of the greatest shooters of that generation. The Pacers went to the NBA Finals in 2000, making Tabak the first player in European history to make the finals with two different teams. Of course, they lost. It was Shaq and Kobe, but still an impressive accomplishment nonetheless. Tabak retired from the NBA in 2001 at 31 years old. He spent the last few years of his career in Spain at Real Madrid, Barcelona and Malaga. He ended his career with a Spanish Cup win. After playing pro for 20 years, he became a coach and has been ever since. As an assistant coach, he won the EuroLeague title with Real Madrid, as well as these titles. And as a head coach in Poland and Israel, he's won these titles. You have to admit, he's had a nice career in hoops. Next up, we have Larry Wright, another player from the 1970s. Wright's NBA career was short. After winning SWAC Player of the Year in college, he was drafted 14th by the Washington Bullets. He only played 6 seasons in the NBA, averaged 8.2 points, 3.4 assists and 1.1 rebounds for his career. He spent 4 seasons in Washington and was a part of the Bullets team in 1978 that won the NBA championship with Elvin Hayes and Wes Unseld. Fun fact, this is the same Bullets team that lost to EuroLeague champions Maccabi Tel Aviv in the first ever EuroLeague NBA game. The Bullets made the finals again in 1979, losing to the Supersonics. Larry Wright left the NBA in 1982. He joined the Italian League and became a superstar from day one. In his first season playing for Roma, Wright averaged 22.2 points and won the club the Italian League finals for the first time in club history. But wait, it gets better. In 1984, Roma faced Barcelona in the EuroLeague final. Larry Wright scored 27 points, made big shots in the clutch, and was MVP of the finals. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Now for the last player on this list, we're going back even further, to the 1970s. Jim Brewer was one of the biggest busts of his era, yet somehow won both championships. In 1973, he was a part of the US Olympic team that lost in the Olympics for the first time. During the final, he was violently injured by the same guy who scored the game-winning basket in the most controversial game in basketball history. Jim Brewer was picked number 2 in the draft, behind Doug Collins. He never made an all-star team, averaged 5.8 points and 6.3 rebounds for his career. He had one good season in 1976, averaging a double-double. Apart from that, he wasn't anything special, a 6'9" power forward who made 2 all-defensive teams. But towards the end of his career, he reinvented himself. He spent most of his career in Cleveland, but spent a season in Detroit and Portland before landing in LA in 1981. Lucky for him, this was the Showtime Lakers that Bob Mcadoo played for. And despite only averaging 2.6 points and 3.7 rebounds in 13 minutes per game over 2 years, In 1982, Jim Brewer became an NBA champion and ended his NBA career on a high. But he wasn't done hooping just yet. He left the NBA to join Italian club Santu, who are one of Europe's most successful clubs historically, who have fallen off a bit in recent times. Santu were already EuroLeague champions when Brewer signed, but just because they went back to back and won it again, doesn't mean Brewer had an easy ride, as in the EuroLeague Championship game final, Jim Brewer actually won them the title thanks to this famous play. To be honest, there isn't too much Jim Brewer content on YouTube, and I don't want you guys staring at low quality pixels any longer. So let's waste no time and wrap up this video. If you've made it this far in the video, you must have enjoyed, you must be entertained. So subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so you know when we next upload, and on that note it's DKM signing out, until next time, and peace.